Welcome to Accounting in the Wild, where we'll discuss various subjects in the tax and accounting world, also featuring tales from the field and interviews on various tax and accounting subjects. All this and much, much more on Accounting in the Wild. And now, here's your host, Jason Dynison.
Well, welcome to another episode of Accounting in the Wild. We're pleased to have Chris Rivera from myCPE 1 with us on this episode. And, Chris and I have kind of known each other for probably 6 years now. I've been working, Chris, with myCPE, the CPE side of things as an instructor. I went back and looked. I think it was the fall of 2018 is when you guys first reached out to me about that. And, been working with myCPE on a number of things. I guess before we get too deep down the road of our discussion today about offshoring, we should have you introduce yourself a little bit, and along with that, maybe tell us just a little bit your elevator pitch about myCPE 1 also.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exciting. Thanks for having me on. I'm Chris Rivera. I've been working with my CP1 now for almost 7 years. And this recent merge has been very exciting for us. I come technically from the integrity side of this, which was all the staffing component, and then my-cpe.com, right, was all the education. So it was simply our sister company, and now joining forces to operate all under one umbrella is the objective, and then offering additional services to our clients. So it's been this vision too was outlined to me from senior management years ago, and you buy into it, and now to see it come to fruition, I mean, it's pretty awesome to say the least. And day to day, I'm working with clients. I talk all day long, 5 to 8 calls a day for almost 7 years. I've spoken with thousands and thousands of accountants, and just about the consultative approach as far as staffing. Right, staffing is just the number one pain point with everything going on, and with everyone that I'm speaking with. So it's a lot of fun what I do, and at the end of the day, to see the client and this all comes to fruition as the best thing in the world. So
Yeah, so we're here today to talk about offshoring and I guess just kind of all the different things under that umbrella. The first thing I wanted to bring up is something that I was corrected on many years ago when I first started working with you guys, which is the difference between outsourcing versus offshoring. What is those two words are used interchangeably, but they're not really interchangeable, right?
exactly. I mean, you can outsource your work to me, and then I'm going to outsource it right to the folks over in India. So outsourcing can be onshore, it could be nearshore, it could be offshore. So you're simply giving the workload to a different entity or company to handle it. So you're not typically in direct contact with the folks that are actually doing the work, right? Offshoring, boom, you left the country for sure. And then you're looking at more of a dedicated approach. How do I hire this offshore staff member? You could do it on your own, right? But then you have everything that you're responsible for: employment, HR, payroll, taxes, conversions, right? Everything. Or you offshore with an agency, a company, and then they're the ones that are going to be responsible for that, however, and then recruiting the talent for you. So yeah, outsourcing could be anywhere. Offshoring is specifically leaving this country, and then looking more of a dedicated approach where the staff member works directly for you.
So that you just said, Chris, I wanted to follow up on that about how when you offshore, the people that you offshore with, in other words, the staff, they really are your staff who are working for you as part of your firm. I know some of the firms that have done offshoring even kind of advertise it almost as like we're a global company, or we have our office over here that these staff members work out of, and it's not like, well, here's just these people over here that we're tossing some work to. It's like the staff, they're staff, they're part of the business.
Yes, absolutely. And those are the most successful firms because they're felt The folks that they're working with offshore through us, they feel like they don't work with us, they work with this firm. And that's where the success comes in because this is all a one team culture. So where this can go wrong is when you create a division, offshore and onshore. It's all one team. Everyone's held accountable. You identify, who's responsible for what task, who's going to review, who's kind of anchoring this offshore, who's anchoring this onshore. So it is all one team. So exactly the folks that are saying that and they're treating them like that, but it gets quickly complicated and quickly convoluted. Treat them like your own staff. You say, okay, but then, when you have um, there's still that comfortability with people coming into the office. I still feel it. You could see in the news, right? Everyone's like coming, reeling them back in, right? Remote work is a mindset, and it's been going on for decades. And I've worked remote since day one, but the level of comfort, right, is starting to go down again. Right? You're forced into it, and then all of a sudden now it's being pulled back. And that is a very difficult thing for folks to really grasp because these folks are going to be 7 to 12,000 miles away from us. They're not going to be in the office anytime soon. So kudos to them that you're hearing it because they did it. They're just treating them like their own staff, regardless of where they are. Yeah. You have to be disciplined and time management. That was the first two things that I learned quickly because what I realized that when I started working remotely, my bed is right behind this wall. So I became a professional napper, right? And that's not a good situation when you're starting a new job. So you have to manage your time and be disciplined. To have check-in points, right? Whether it's in the morning, here's my plan, right? Or at the end of the day, here's what I completed. So you have visibility, right? And then on meetings and trainings, right? Utilizing technology. We do it all day long, but you need to be part of it, right? Sometimes, like most of my teams out in India, sometimes I'm forgotten about, or we're coming up with some solutions on this end. We forget to tell them because, they're 9,000 miles away. So having a process throughout the day, what you're responsible for, an understanding of it, check in or check out, or both, whatever in the beginning, so you have visibility. And then also just ensuring that the information is relayed to the proper channels. So utilizing technology, technology, technology. I tell you, we've used so many different Slack teams, Skype, Blue Jeans, and now we have it all stream. And we used to literally I have all the platforms open, and that doesn't work either. We need to all streamline it. So internally we use Teams. So then you're able to easily pin chats and folks that you work with on a consistent basis. When random projects come in, you're able to grasp onto them. Everyone can see your schedule. Was shared with everybody, right? So visibility on both ends. So just having those processes in place and being disciplined, this is super important.
And training. I mean, sometimes if you get on social media, you read horror stories of, oh, we offshored to India and it was a disaster or whatever, and it's like you hear those stories of people who hire Americans too, though. It's like, well, we hired them and they didn't know what they were doing, because it's like in the business world nowadays, it's like people hire and then it's like, well, here you go, good luck. um, my CPE one, I know, hires highly qualified people, enrolled agents, and public accountants and so forth, but you have to train people as your staff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, that there's a little bit of a gap there still where for example, when you hire somebody locally, right, there's an understanding that you need to onboard them, integrate them, bring them in because they're visually there. And that's the same thing with a remote worker, regardless if they're onshore, nearshore, offshore. A remote worker has to be brought on with that same rigid structure. But all of a sudden, there's a gap with they're not there. How do we do this? It's very easily, again, utilizing technologies, just digitizing your firm, right? So if they come in and you have a playbook, right, and there's the chapter one, day one, or whatever the case is, well, let's digitize that. That's it, right? But that gap there creates a lot of hesitancy. And they're just like, "Oh, well, I don't know, I don't understand." And so, hand-holding and walking them through the process is super important and understanding that nothing changes, right? So you bring them on that playbook that's, 115 pages of just paper. Let's put that in SharePoint. Boom, you're done, right? So they're able to visually see it. But you have to do the same process for and it's something that I harp on is that the same thing you do locally, you're going to be doing the same, onboarding with your remote staff. It's just utilizing technology, and that can get convoluted. But once you understand and grasp that, it becomes cake, especially when you first get your first hire under your belt.
Well, people like stories. Do you have any, without naming names, I guess, or saying anything about, Joe Blow specifically or whatever? Do you have any success stories you could tell us about maybe a firm, especially this podcast in particular is geared not necessarily just to solo operators, but more to smaller firms. Any success stories that you like to tell about solo operators or smaller firms that were able to use outsourcing? There I go using the wrong terminology after, and I know better. Any
Well, you
stories you?
corrected yourself.
Right, I caught it. I caught it. Success stories about offshoring.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I have a great one. So when I first applied for the job, and then you have we have two you have two people in two different countries trying to trust each other. It was very difficult, right? But once that was there, the relationship has absolutely blossomed. But I say that because I had to prove myself, even though I had a management history, I had very good track record of what I've done. But I had to, go from a manager down to, account executive to prove myself. And it was fun because I hadn't done it in some time. I was bought into this, why I'm still here, love working with my company. It's so much fun, yada yada. But going to this story. So now uh calling on clients, right? Reaching out and prospective clients. I had to do that all over again. And there was this one for about 18 months. Would always answer my monthly call, but they would never commit to a meeting, right? And it was always the husband I spoke with who liked me. The wife would always say no, right? All of a sudden, and this was a firm at the time that had husband and wife ownership. She does the taxes, he runs the accounting aspect. They had maybe two or three admin and some preparers onshore. They One of them left. So at my monthly call again, they were like, "Chris, we're actually going to take this call." Right? Right now, they have over 10 staff with us. And so it just took some time. And the hesitations were offshoring, right? You guys, they don't know what they're doing. The wife was in charge. She was very concerned that they would not respect her, right? So they had a lot of hesitations already right off the bat that I had to easily address. And so it's just that understanding of what you're getting yourself into, but don't go into it with a negative mindset because it's not going to work. So they were ready for the call after 18 months, and they started with one bookkeeper, right? Then they built in a tax team. Then they built and so now they only have themselves and the two onshore folks, and they have a 10-person offshore team. And it happened over the course of 4 or 5 years. But the fact that when the need is there, you have an open mind, you just do it.
One of the things that is interesting to me in these discussions, the more you learn about it, is that sometimes people are very against offshoring because it's like, oh, it's taking jobs away from Americans. But in some ways, it actually can create more opportunity onshore in some cases, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a huge, gigantic is a bigger word for accounting shortage going on, right? And so I hear it every day. It doesn't matter if a lot of folks think it's in a smaller city or larger, it's everywhere, right? So you have to understand that the talent pool is thinning out. So when you're looking at the offshoring aspect, yeah, there's a lot of negative emotions around it, but none of it's been, a lot of it's based also on hearsay or just something that they might have just came across or something that just put into their mind, but it's never true. And so you have to understand that the job, right, that they're going to replace jobs. No, this is going to actually complement the onshore team for work-life balance because they're too stressed out, right? They're trying to find locally. There's nothing there. Work is coming in. Quality control and compliance. Well, that's where you bring in a company like myCPE to help you manage that, right? Security, confidentiality. That's always a nervousness there, and that's natural and it's and understandable. But hiring an agency, right, to help alleviate that, and then client perception, right, and trust right there. So that just being transparent. The clients are gonna be fine with you, whatever you do. Um, they're invested in you. You have access to all their financial information. So whatever you do, if you're behind it and you're proud of it, they're going to trust you and be right there with you. And that's the biggest thing is the a positive mindset and the approach and how you do this and work with your clients. And then you'll absolutely be fine.
Do you find, and you could disagree with me on this, that's fine. This is just my perception, is that as the years have gone on, maybe some of the stigma associated with doing this has gone down. Like it's more of an accepted thing where it's like, yeah, this is okay. Whereas maybe, say, 10 years ago, or, didn't it start with like the big four 20 or 25 years ago? And people are like, ooh, offshoring or outsourcing, terrible, terrible. And some people still think that. But it seems like that perception has changed as the years have gone on.
Exactly. There's still resistance to change. That word is scary. However, it's a lack of actually understanding what's going on and taking in bits of information. So when I ask somebody, why are you, let's say, against offshoring, they don't know why. They've never had a particular reason. Right? It's never actually directly affected them. It's just something that they heard, and unfortunately, it just permeates throughout everywhere. And then when you mention something like you said, offshore, oh, you don't even know why you're doing. Oh, you have no clue. You're just. It's like an instinct to do it. And so what I could say to that is the comfort level of comfort with remote work. That it had to start there because there was none within this profession. Like I said earlier, I had to educate on that aspect. So now, okay, they're remote. Well, let's look outside our city, right? Baby steps. And then you look in the next county, right? Remote work. And there's nothing there. Let's go to the next state. Let's look there. And then you're like, you know what? Let's do this offshore thing. If they're remote and they're not here, it doesn't matter where they are, right? So that progression of the thought process with folks has enabled me not to focus on remote work, but how this can actually work for you, right? Focus on the core task onshore, what you could move offshore, involve everybody. It doesn't matter if you have a team of 20, 200, everybody's hoorah, all in with this, right? And if they're not, let's get them on the call and let's see what are the concerns, what are you kind of worried about, and let's address that for sure. And so that progression has enabled the profession to really look at hiring anywhere in this world.
Now, as people are listening to this, it's going to be sometime in February, first or second week of February. Tax season is underway. Is it too late to do something for tax season 2025?
No, because we have a lot of options, right? With the recent merge and the additional resources that we have now, hiring a dedicated staff probably not the right route, but there's on-demand options, right? So you got to understand the ecosystem in other countries. It is booming. It is very respectable to be an accountant. People are getting in the profession. It's looked at in a much positive light, right? We just need to do some rebranding here because and it'll be fine here. It'll balance itself out. But in other countries, there's a lot of people, right? And they're skilled, they're qualified, and they're ready to go. So to answer your question, yeah, it's not late. You can go with a team approach. You go with on demand, and if you do have some time to do some interviews and bring somebody on, right? We keep a running bench. So for sure, there's different options to look at, and then once the dust settles down, then we can reevaluate and look at other resources and other options too. So for sure.
So, what should someone do, whether they want to do something right now or they want to wait till after tax season or whenever they want to do it? If this is something they want to explore more, what would be the best next step for them?
Yeah, sure. Send it as quick as you can send an email to Chris at myCPE.com. Chris at my-CPE.com. And the whole back end team will support you. Send out information based on your current needs. Just let us know how we can help. A quick email will definitely suffice.
Well, Chris Rivera, it's always good talking to you. I'm sure we'll be talking again about different trends with offshoring or anything else that may come along that we need to talk about. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for listening, and join us next time for another edition of Accounting in the Wild with Jason Dynison.